All right, so we are live and in person. Amar, welcome aboard, my friends. We missed you last week, dude.
Yeah.
So you guys are planting some stuff, I understand.
Yeah, we built a planting bed. It's about 70 feet long and 3 feet wide. So we're just starting.
And you're gonna grow. You already have an orange tree, you said back there, and you already got avocados.
Yeah, Satsuma.
What is that? I don't even know what that is.
It's a citrus. It's citrus orange.
Oh man, you serious?
Yeah, we're getting my green thumb working.
You got more. You got a navel orange and a Satsuma, which is another orange. You got more. You got citrus plants. Oh, dude.
We got pineapple guava, which they don't taste so great, but it's good. We got avocado. That's the big one. Avocado.
You like that guacamole, right? In that avocado.
Yeah. But we don't have Haas avocados. We have this other. I forgot the name of it right now, but it's good on sandwiches. Avocado toast.
Avocado toast, right? All right.
We got people from Arizona, Maryland, Turpentines, right? There's a
Turpentine.
University of Maryland. What was it?
Turpentine. Terrapin.
Yeah. Terrapin. Yeah. You knew what I meant.
That's awesome, though. Right on. We got Connect. My man Vinyl's in Connecticut says they're supposed to get a freeze tonight. It's freaking cold here right now, Vine. I'll tell you that right now. The sun's out, but man, I was just outside with the puppies. I was freezing my tushy off. That's for sure. Dennis moved from California to Arizona, he said. And I said, hope you didn't bring your politics with you. He goes, no way. So there's another.
That's Half Dome. I was right there 2 weeks ago.
Where were you?
Yosemite.
Oh, Yosemite, right. Yeah, so Maryland, right on. We got, where are you at in Maryland, Mark? And then we got Jeremy from Maine. So we got Maine, Maryland, Arizona.
My picture of Half Dome.
Wow, that's fantastic.
I don't know if that's coming across. Is it?
Oh, that's freaking beautiful. Man, that's nice.
Yeah. I told you my daughter did, I think it was Vernal Falls is the first waterfall there.
Wait, where are you looking at? What are you looking at?
There's my, you see?
Wow, that's fantastic.
And these cameras don't pick up clarity that well. There you go.
Oh, man.
There you go. That's beautiful, right? The waterfall.
Man, that's gorgeous. Yosemite, that's in California?
Yosemite, yeah, California.
All right, we let him out. Hold on just a second.
Hey, before you go, can you put the slide deck on?
Yep. Dude, it's cold, man. Burr. All right, here comes the slide deck. So we want to make sure you all see the disclosures.
Yep. So today we're so I guess maybe to tee this up, what we could say is like, so last time we did this, Alan's in San Diego. Yeah. Same here.
No, he's always on here, Alan.
I live just north of Balboa Park.
So Alan, now you know where to avoid, north of Balboa Park. You know, I see Amar driving down the street in his brand new Tesla, throwing dollars out the bills. It's so much fun on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe to Amar's channel too, by the way, everybody. So Amar's channel is Client First Learning.
Yeah.
Client First Capital Learning, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And funny story. You bring up the Tesla. I'll just say as a quick, and then we'll get on to the content, if you will. Yeah. In Texas when they had the freeze and the pipes were bursting and stuff like that.
Yep.
So my client, who happens to own a Tesla, husband and wife, the SUV, the Model X, they were toasty. They were toasty. Because in Texas they were getting intermittent power, right? Yeah. And so they got enough power to charge their Tesla, and then they slept in there with the heating on all night.
That's actually a wonderful thing. No carbon monoxide.
Yeah. So they basically the back row can fold flat. They have an air mattress and they just put a blanket and slept in there with the heater on all night.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting thing, because the one drawback about your ICEs, the carbon dioxide, would kill you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Literally kill you. And so Tesla, because there is no carbon dioxide, just electricity, or the electric battery. That's a win for Tesla or any kind of EV.
There you go. All right. So here, the disclosures. Josh and I are just giving you educational content. We're not looking at your specific situation. We're not making any recommendations. We're not attorneys. We're not CPAs. We're just two dudes giving you advice, or not advice, giving you education on a topic that that people are looking for. So again,
we're not attorneys and we don't practice law. That's all there is to it. So we're not giving you legal advice. You cannot do that. It'd be considered practicing law, which would be illegal.
Yeah.
And Amar will not last in jail. We don't want to see Amar in jail because that would be illegal. That'd be bad.
I wouldn't last in jail ever.
Neither, man.
All right, so we're talking about wills and trusts. So the first this is 3 parts, right? So the first part we talked about healthcare directives and power of attorneys, and those are documents you need while you're alive, right? Yeah. So if you didn't check out that live stream, please watch that, because there's a lot of good pieces of information in there. This one is really going to be what happens at death, right? So these are 2 documents that help in that transition phase. So first, we're going to talk about a will, and a will is a fairly simple document, and a will really gives you an ability to name who has control over your kids, pets, distribution of assets, and any final arrangements that you want to make, right? So a will, basically, you're telling other people what you want to see happen, right? Josh, you have anything to add?
So basically with a will, guys, that you want to make sure you have a will. That's all. I get this all the time, but I'm too young to have a will. Well, notice right there, name guardians for kids and pets. So if you're too young, if you don't have kids, well, okay, you might not have a will, but you still might have assets, a car, a baseball card collection, firearms, your gold, whatever it is you got. A will is what determines who gets it. What's called the disposition of the assets. The interesting thing is that a lot of people who are too young to have wills have children. And you're like, well, who's going to take care of your kids if you die? And that's what a will, for anyone, everyone needs a will. That's all. Look, if you're a single, Amar, 25 years old, single guy, maybe not. But everybody else does need a will, because you need to tell you have a will, you have an estate plan, I should say. The government will have one created for you. So we don't want that. So a will is the basic, most simple plan of action you can do. So and no one has one. No one has it. Very few people have one, Amar. I say, I know I need to get on that. I'm like,
no. You need to have it.
Yep, 100%. So I think everybody kind of knows that for sure.
Yeah, and so there's different types of wills that you can have, right?
Yep.
So the most common is just a simple will, right? There's also a testamentary trust will, which basically at your passing, the will says to create a trust for the benefit of your beneficiaries and funds the trust at death. So while you're alive, you don't have a trust, but at a triggering event of death, you create a trust. Living will, I think, is probably the most common, right?
What, say again, Amar? I didn't hear you.
The living will is the most common, right? So
most common type of will? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, the living will, the last one here.
No. The living will is its own separate. Yeah, so a living will is just a right to die clause, everybody. So that means who's going to pull the plug. A lot of people get mixed up between a living will and a living trust. They're not the same. And a living will and a regular will, you need both, because like it says right here, has nothing to do with distributing your property. All right, it only says, hey, what's going to, again, what I call right to die clause. When are you going to pull the plug?
So I think another type of will that's commonly, I think from state to state, they have different names for this, right?
Yes,
and so exactly. I guess the more popular one is like a pour over will.
Yeah,
right?
That's
and I guess that's what I was trying to allude to, is that the pour over will, which is common, is because people that have trusts, if you don't title your stuff in the trust, then the poor will puts all that stuff into the trust. So basically, there are different types of wills that you can have.
Now, but real quick, go back to the wills, Amar. The biggest person in the will is whom? Is going to be the executor or the executrix. And it's the same thing. It's just executrix is for a woman, executor is for the man. That's going to be the person that you are nominating to manage your affairs, essentially to take over your estate, to show up to probate and say, I want this to happen, I want that to happen, based on what your document says. So like we talked about 2 weeks ago, you want to make sure you don't have Uncle Bob, who's 75 years old and has got Alzheimer's, as your executor or executrix. Now, 25 years ago, when you nominated him, he was fine. But now he's 25 years hence, and he's probably moved to a nursing home or something like that. You got to keep in track of who that person is, because that's the most important part of your will. And it's also going to be a big part of your trust, what's called a trustee, which we'll get into right now. Yeah, keep going.
Yeah. I thought you were going to do a survey or something, like poll the audience.
About what?
About wills.
Oh, yeah. That's a good point. I don't know if you can do that on this, but yeah, maybe next time.
So what is a trust? So, we don't want to overcomplicate it, but just think of a trust as a way of titling assets. So it holds your assets, and then you can dictate what happens to those assets in terms of transferring, spending, and you can put restrictions on the flow of those assets too. So
Chloe just came home for lunch, by the way, in case you're wondering who I was handing Pablo off to.
Yeah, and so the big thing with the trust is that it avoids probate, right? Yes. So you're just you have your documents there, and that avoids probate. And what is the reason you want to avoid probate? I think that would be a good thing to cover.
All right, so I wonder how I do a poll in here. I'm not sure how to do that. So, but let me hold on. Don't say what is. So let's hear what the peanut gallery has to say. What are some reasons to avoid probate? So if you all want to add, now remember there's a 15-second delay, Amar, so we'll give it just a second here, but we'll swing back around that. So keep talking about the trust and stuff while we're waiting on some of the assets. All right, some of the responses.
Yeah, so I'm just looking at some of this stuff, some of the comments, and one of the so yeah, you may need a will and a trust, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because a will dictate what goes into the trust if you have stuff that's outside of the trust. For example, in most states, you can't own a car in the title of your trust, right? Like it has to be a human. You may have IRAs or beneficiaries of TOD or POD accounts that are not going to go through your trust, right? So not all assets will go through the trust. So Dennis, I think, has hit on a key thing there.
Well, real quick, so on that, so remember, I can't imagine any attorney would draw up a trust and not having a will as well. So they go hand in hand. You don't need a trust if you have a will, but I would simply say if you're going to give a living trust, remember we're talking living trust here initially, then you're definitely going to want a will as well, because your will not cover everything. Yeah, right on. So Dennis, for what's the benefits of a probate? Privacy. Yep.
Yeah. So privacy is a big one, right? Because in probate, everything becomes public record, right? And so this is if you want to keep your stuff private, then you don't want to go through probate. And
just like Mark, public disclosure of assets public disclosure of assets. Absolutely.
Speed to settle. So this is a good one. So let me give you an example. In San Diego County, so San Diego County is kind of big, but we used to have 5 estate settlement probate courts, right? So you could get your, if somebody passed away, there were 5 courts. It's down to 2, right?
Oh, wow.
And so if you think about time delays, I mean, think about all the people trying to go to those 2 courts to kind of get their affairs in order.
But there's only 2 courts, even though the size of San Diego County has probably exploded, right? I mean, so
there's only 2 probate courts, there's multiple courts.
No, probate courts. Right on. Wow.
Yeah. So I think somebody that I talked to, it's been about a year and a half, and they're still in court. Yeah.
Whoa.
So like I would say it's very feasible. Like I think somebody said at least 90 days. I think 90 days would be best case scenario.
Yeah, I agree.
I think right now most probates are lasting about a year to 2. Like somewhere in
crazy, man. That's nuts. I didn't know that. I mean, they only got 2 probate courts in the whole county.
Yeah. Well, you know, so we talked about why you want to avoid probate. One of the other things that's not mentioned here is that the court determines the fees that are paid to attorneys and to other professionals that are involved in that. And if you've ever pulled up a probate fee schedule, I mean, it's high. I don't know. Here, let me see if. All right, let's just continue, and then maybe at the end I'll Google and try to find a probate fee schedule so that people can see that.
While you're thinking, Vinyl says trust, and sometimes even worse than probate, especially trust supervised by the probate court. I think it depends on the complexity of the estate, what you have in your trust document itself. There's a lot that sounds good with trust in theory, and then the practicality of it and the actual the management of it, you're like, that just created a hell of, just some serious issues when it comes to the management of that trust. So it's not a trust in of itself isn't the all encompassing situation, because a lot of people just put a trust and they don't even look at it. They don't look at it. They say, oh, okay, right over here, I'll come back to that, and they never do.
Like on their shiny bookshelf.
Yes, 100%.
So let's walk through a trust. So here's an example. I'm not saying this is your trust or anything else like that, but this is just an example of a trust. Say you have a revocable living trust right here. The trustors, trustees, beneficiaries, the first people in line are all going to be the grantors of that trust, right? So like husband and wife, 2 spouses, whatever, are the original trustors, trustees, and beneficiaries. After that, you're going to have a successor trustee, and then your children as beneficiaries or whatever. Over here, you have your will, which we talked about earlier, and then in our last episode, the power of attorney and healthcare directives. Yep. So do you see how these are all separate documents, right? So that's the first key takeaway that I wanted to illustrate. Then one spouse passes away. So now in an A-B trust, I think the way I remember it, A is alive and you're above the ground, and B is you're below the ground.
Yeah, 100%. Right? Yep.
So the survivor's share of the community property or separate property goes into a survivor's trust. So the survivor has full control over this trust. They can change it. They can do whatever they want, right? Yeah. The deceased will go into what's called a bypass trust. And here, the deceased is no longer able to control these funds. The survivor is now the primary trustee of this trust. Does that make sense? So like you're both trustees, husband and wife. Let's say husband passes away. Husband can't do affairs. So the wife now steps up as the sole trustee of this trust. And you may have a successor trustee or whatever behind that, but you can't change this trust. It's irrevocable at this point.
Yes, huge. Yeah. All right, Amar, let me just interject real quick. Remember, guys, a trustee is similar to the executor or executrix. So the executor or executrix are the person who manages your will. A trustee is a person who manages your trust. And again, in this case, we're talking a living trust. But Amar said something that's critical to understand. At death of the grantor, the living trust becomes irrevocable. It's no longer a living trust, a revocable living trust. It's now irrevocable. It's a big, big deal for sure.
Yeah. And then sometimes if you have a large estate and you're trying to gift money to your children and file a 709 gift tax form or any of that stuff, you're going to try to fund everything above the exemption amounts to a marital trust, right? So this is like the Q-tip, if you will. So this is up to the exemption amount, and this is anything above that amount, right? And remember, this is going to be subject to estate tax because it's above that exemption amount at the death of the second spouse. So here, what you want to do is kind of see if the exemption amounts, let's just say, are 11 million each, most of your assets could fall in these two columns, right? But if the estate tax exemptions go down, right, and there's a lot of talk about it, right, Josh? That they could.
Big time. A lot of people are like, I don't need to worry about estate tax. I'm like, oh, yes, you do. Yes, you do. Well,
I mean, we're doing a lot of printing, and so taxes are the biggest impact on that. Have to pay for some of these bills, right? So
someone's going to pay for it. That's for
sure. And so if the exemption amounts go down, just think of these as smaller dollar amounts here. But this is going to be everything above that exemption amount. And then the passing of the second spouse, you get estate taxes paid here, estate taxes paid on this part of the trust. And then everything gets combined and it gets final distribution. Right?
Does California have an estate tax? I can't remember.
Not yet.
Okay. Inheritance tax?
Not yet.
Gift tax?
Not yet.
Whoa, all right. I like how you said not yet, though. Okay, gotcha, right on.
Yeah, I mean, California's, we won't go into that. So one thing that Vinyl makes a good comment here is that when you have an irrevocable trust, this B trust, there's going to be a separate tax return every year for this trust, right? And so there is a balancing act, and working with clients. Do you want to have simplicity, or do you want to maximize your tax savings, right? So even though you paid, let's say, so $12,000 in tax preparation, you probably saved capital gains tax, right? Or you got to step up in cost basis. There's other taxes that are being avoided by this setup, if you will.
Also, too, notice Vinyl says a 1041. I cannot tell you I'm not you, Amar, but how many people, I got a trust, I got to set up trust, it's an irrevocable trust. I said, so who's filing a 1041? Ooh, like, yeah, exactly. You don't have an irrevocable trust if you don't have a 1041. A 1041 is a trust tax return. Remember, a living trust, it flows back to your Social Security number. So a living trust doesn't give you a separate tax entity. An irrevocable trust does. It's a whole unique taxpayer, and a lot of people just don't get it. And I wouldn't expect, Amar, we'll say Dennis here, who moved from California to Arizona, to know all this stuff. What I would expect, though, is if Dennis, I'm just picking on him because he came to mind, if Dennis was getting estate planning, that he would know who to talk to know all this stuff, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and
want to bring up the all right.
Yeah, so I was just going to add one comment there. Is that absolutely. For some people, a trust could add just a layer of complexity that the family doesn't need.
Yep.
Right. And so like a will and owning things in TOD, POD, and having healthcare directives and power of attorney may suffice. You know, this is not for everybody. But as you get more assets, you're going to have more complexity. More complexity will lead, the goal is not to add complexity. The goal is to add tax savings, but the byproduct of that is adding complexity. So
100%. A lot of times the last thing we want is more complexity for your heirs who are trying to deal with the fact that you just died. You know what I'm saying? We don't want your children who are mourning you to have to now deal with 8,000 different legal entities for sure. Lots of good books, and we'll put links in the show. Here's a book, The Living Trust, the fail-proof way to pass along your estate to your heirs without lawyers, courts, and the probate system. This is Henry Abst. There's another one. I'll put links in the show notes too, from a Vicky Schumacher, Understanding Living Trust. There's lots of different reasons you'd want to have a trust, but in of itself, it's not the wherewithal, the catch-all for everything. It's just not. Now, Vinyl says if you have less than 5 million, he wouldn't recommend a trust. I disagree with that because it completely depends. If you have multiple real estate assets, so you got a mountain home. Amar's, he's a rich guy. He's gonna have a mountain home in Denver where he skis, flying down the slope. He's got a beach house in Hawaii and a place in San Diego where his primary residence. The living trust probably makes sense in that regard for sure.
But if you just look at it, I mean, they do different things, right? So like a trust, what if you have a child that has special needs?
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
You're going to need a trust, even if you have less than 5 million, because you're going to kick them off of Social Security disability income.
Or if you have a child, here's Chloe, or she just walked away. What if Chloe all of a sudden became a crackhead? You know what I'm saying? I don't want to leave her, my $30 I have my IRA to be able to go use and buy some rocks. So the only way I can do that is not leave as a beneficiary designation directly to Chloe, but is to make sure I name a trustee to manage my IRA at my death, so that way Chloe doesn't hurt herself. I ask that all the time, actually, when I'm talking to clients. I imagine you do the same, Amar. They say, yeah, how you? And I say, it's an odd question, but any concerns about your children or your children's spouses being not being righteous, if that makes sense? Because if there is, we have to look at other ways to protect them from themselves.
Yeah. And so, like, from a trust, you can distribute lump sum. You can distribute over a period of time. You could distribute an income. I think the funniest trust that not funniest.
Want to bring this up and want me to show it?
No, not yet. So like, I was just going to give an example.
Yeah.
I once worked with a client that had significant assets, and he wanted to make sure his children were employed with good jobs and gainfully employed. And so what he did in his trust is he named USA at the time where I was working as a successor trustee. And then every year, the distributions from the trust matched what the children's W-2 was from the previous year. So, like, it was a trust that, if they earn more income, they would get more income from the trust. So, I mean, you can add, the point was that you can add different stipulations on how the distribution of assets are, and maybe that's important to you.
Yes.
You don't need to have 5 million to have that to be important.
A lot of people say, I'll give it to my kids when they're 25, 35, and 45. I'm Frank, I'm just not the biggest fan of that, just because I'm like, man, unless there's, I don't know. It's one of those things like, or they'll say with a 35, 45, 55, I'll give a third. It depends. Everyone's situation is different, but I think a lot of people get way caught up in how to, I don't know. It's one of those things like your kid's like, man, I need the money now. I don't need it when I'm 45. I got kids in school. I got a house payment. I mean, it'd be great if dad trusts me as a 35-year-old as opposed to wait till I'm 55. And I see that a lot. And I don't see that much more. But when I was at USA, I saw it all the time. I was like, ugh. On top of that, too, Amar, just going back to our USAA days, a lot of the men would be the military officers, and the women would be would a lot of times be non-existent when it comes to the financial management, frankly. And so what would happen is these men would, colonels, admiral, flag officers, whatnot, set up these very elaborate trust documents to, quote, help their wives out when they died. And it'd just be such a freaking clusterfuck. You're like, oh my God, how do we it's nuts. And I'm like, look, dude, at the end of the day, you just created this freaking this rat's nest of crap that there's no way anyone's going to figure out. You thought you were helping when you weren't. You would have been much better just leaving a beneficiary designation. And a lot of times they're worried about their spouse, their surviving spouse, being taken advantage of, and I get that. And there's simple ways to do that without creating this rat's nest for sure.
Yeah. So if we put the slides back up, when you
go ahead.
Trust, the important thing to take away in this slide is trust and wills. They do two different things, right? Yeah. So trust provides for management and distribution of your assets, during your lifetime as well as at death. And next week, when we do our third part of our presentation, we're going to talk about after death and how an irrevocable trust and some of the intricacies of that. And a will allows you to appoint people to take care of your children, take care of your estate, do your final wishes, and a comprehensive plan. And, it's going to have both, and it's going to have the healthcare directives and power of attorney that we talked about earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. There, keep going, Amar. That's good.
So, wills and trust. So, we talked about there's a
question, Amar. Hold on a second. Let's if you want to tackle that, can you read that? No,
you could do a primary and secondary executor.
You should, Nancy, but keep going.
Yeah. You definitely want to have at least two deed. So you want to have primary, secondary, and most of the time you want to have a backstop, right? If you have significant assets. So the case here is that if somebody died, well, it doesn't have to be somebody died. Somebody could say like, "Hey, I don't want to serve as an executor." I've seen that happen as well. And so you definitely need to have a second person line there.
And I mean, and going on to the trustee on your living trust document too, Nancy, is that the first thing I ask is who's your trustee, and a lot of times it's a grantor. So let's just say Charlotte and I are married. We have a living trust, a joint living trust. We are the grantors. We're granting the assets to be funded for that trust. We're also the trustee. We manage the trust, so it flows back to our 1040. We're the trustee. We're the grantor. But then the first thing I ask of a client is that who's a successor trustee? And I'd say probably 90% of the time I get this blank stare, like, that's the most important one, because going back to what Nancy says, can you name more than one executor? The answer is yes. And the same thing with a trust is like, who is your successor trustee? Who comes into play when you are incapacitated or dead? Same thing with executor or executrix. Who's the person who comes in, as Amar was saying, behind the original? And if you don't have that named, or if you have it named but you don't know who it is, that's wrong. You gotta keep up with this stuff. It's that big of a deal, because you don't know when you're going to die. And as such, you got a 20-year-old trust they had written in when you lived in Boston, and now you're in San Diego. Things have changed, man. Real quick, we got another question. Can you set up your 401k to stay invested and pay dividends to your kids and their kids' perpetual ongoing?
So we're going to talk about this next week. This is part of the irrevocable trust.
Yes.
So remember, with the Secure Act, if you don't do anything and you name your children, they have 10 years to distribute those assets. But there is a way where you can name an irrevocable trust and have payouts in for a longer period of time. So we're going to go over that next week.
Yeah, it's just real quick though, Kevin. Remember, anything that comes from the 401k is ordinary income. I know you're trying to say, can they pay the dividends? It doesn't matter. It's coming from the 401k. It's going to be as ordinary income. I mean, you can't. I mean, you can say send the dividends to my kids. I forget the trust. I'm just saying a 401k. It doesn't matter. It's coming out. It's going to tax as ordinary income. Just keep that in mind. Now, you could literally say, don't touch the principal, just send the dividends. That's fine. But from a tax perspective, it's all coming out as OI, ordinary income.
Yeah. Kevin, kite surfing. Did you see that?
Say again?
He's big into kite surfing.
Who, Kevin?
Yeah. Or no, that's not a kite. That's what is that?
I don't know. Looks like a canoe. No, what's not a canoe?
Wind sailing.
No, that boat thing. Yeah, well, maybe it is wind sailing. What's those boat sailing? You know, the kayak. Han says, if my wife and die at the same time, my daughter is a surviving trustee. Okay, that's a weird question. You're asking if my wife and die. I'm being anal here, Han. Yeah. So he's basically saying, should his wife and he die at the same time, he set up his daughter as a successor trustee. 100% right.
Yeah,
it was windsurfing, Amar.
There you go. So it depends on who you put in the doc, like, because like you may not name your daughter, right? Like I've seen sometimes where, people set up a trust when, let's say, your daughter was like, I don't know, 15, 20, something young, and it's like she's not going to have the financial knowledge to serve as trustee, and so you probably put like a brother, a sibling, brother-in-law, somebody else, and they could be serving as a successor trustee in that case.
Here's Jennifer. Check this out. Oh, this is sad. We were too young when my husband diagnosed terminal. 2 kids. We scrambled and paid a ton of money to get his stuff set up, and now I'm here trying to understand it all. Wish I'd done so sooner. Yeah, I've heard that more times than I'd like to admit that I can say. We were too young. Well, one of the benefits about military people, one of my I don't say best friends, a good friend of mine, her husband was KIA in Afghanistan. I met through USA, and she's a client of her and her husband now, her new husband. But one of the benefits about the military is that when you're going on deployment, you're getting all this set up because in case you don't come back. And that was always a wonderful thing. Well, wonderful, but unfortunately, a lot of people like Jennifer here says, I was too young. I didn't need a, and she didn't say that. She was just ignorant. She didn't know. And now she's trying to understand it. It's well, I'm hoping that you're hanging in there. And condolences for losing your husband, man. I can't imagine. All right, so you want me to bring this back up, Amar? There we go. Ooh,
yeah. So before we do that, because we're talking about fees, I just looked up probate costs in California. So this is California probate. This is some attorney's website, but here's your value of your estate. So this is how much stuff you have. This is how much compensation goes to the person that's representing you in probate. It's set by the court. It's not negotiated. This is what it is. So let's say if you have a house and 401k with no beneficiaries or for some reason, this stuff can add up really quick, right? Is that coming up clear? I can't see it.
It's yeah, there you go. There you go. Yeah. Right on.
So this is the value of your estate, and then this is compensation to the individual. And this is a court schedule. So if your estate's, $800,000, then whoever is representing you is going to get paid this.
How much is that? 18,000?
19,000.
Wow. And that's your total estate, not just your investment assets, your whole net worth.
Yeah. Whatever's going through probate, whatever.
Oh, yeah. Not even your whole net worth, just whatever's going through probate.
Yeah. So I just thought I'd show that.
That's specific to San Diego County, Amar?
Oh, California, state of California.
So whoever's settling the probate will get basically 1% on that $800,000. Wow.
Yeah. More than 1%.
Oh, yeah, you're right. That's why you're an engineer and I'm just a economics major. You know what economics are for, right, Amar? In economics, we exist to make astrologers look good.
I thought you were going to say meteorologist, but yeah, same thing. Did you know, like, San Diego has a Doppler radar? Like, I don't understand some of this stuff. But anyways, let's go back to this. So we're going wills and trusts. When do they go into effect? Well, it depends on what type of document you have. But most of the time, people that have revocable living trusts, you gotta fund your trust. I mean, this is the biggest hurdle. People get these documents, they get these binders on their bookshelves, but they never fund their trusts, right? So this is something that's important. Then I think we're done with the slide deck, so we can just share our screens, just you and I.
Yeah. So Ron says IRAs don't go to probate; they go directly to the beneficiary. So let me get my dog tackle that for just a second, Amar.
Yeah. So if you have a named beneficiary, you're correct. They avoid probate, correct? Because they transfer by operation of contract. But what if you don't have a beneficiary listed, right? Exactly. Then it's going to probate. And so make sure you, on those accounts that are TOD, POD, or transfer by operation of contract, like annuities, IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, 457s, you have to make sure it's so important to have a named beneficiary.
A person.
Yeah, human.
Absolutely. It's nuts. Again, just basic financial planning. Who is your beneficiaries? I just named a trust. Oh, I'm like, why? I mean, it might be legit. It might be. We don't know. I just want to emphasize what Amar said. The thing that irks me to no end is I have a living trust. Okay. How's it funded? And look, this is Amar and I got experience, my friends. We've been around the block a few times. We've seen horrible mistakes made by clients that we've been able to learn from to share with you guys and say, don't do that. So you have a living trust that's not funded. It's not worth the paper it's written on. It's just not. It doesn't mean anything. Now, it could be part of a testimony trust, like Amar was saying before, a pour over will, where it's pouring over into this trust at your death. But a lot of times it's not even that. They're just neglected to actually put an asset in the trust. Remember, the trust owns assets. It has to have an asset in it to be responsible for what that asset is going to do upon your incapacity or at your death. If the trust is not funded, it is literally worthless. It's nuts, and it drives me up the wall.
One thing that this reminds me of, and I think you'll remember this at USAA, some financial firms, it's easier to open an account when it's not a trust, right? Like a trust is like a paper app versus electronic DocuSign type thing. And so sometimes people or advisors or some people that are trying to invest your money will say, oh, just open the account. We'll do it electronically, and then we'll change it to the trust. They never do. That's floating out there, right? Sometimes people move and they'll sell, when they do the trust, they'll put their house, part of doing the trust, they'll do a deed change on their house into the trust.
Yep.
But then they move, they buy another house, and they never title it in the trust properly, right? I've seen that as well.
Absolutely. I've seen people open accounts. They say just name the estate as a beneficiary because they just want to get the account open. This is financial institutions who want the account open because they get credit for whatever it is. Just name the estate as a beneficiary. You don't have to. You can change the beneficiaries later, and then later never comes. And the estate is a beneficiary, not a living human being, and that's problematic. Vinyl says IRAs are still part of your estate for estate tax. Life insurance is too. I've always got to point that out. If you are the owner of life insurance and you die, that whatever the death benefit is going into your estate, and it will be potentially taxed as such. Always remember that. Life insurance is part of the estate and is subject to estate tax just like everything else. Amar, some guy, right here, Hans, he says, what if daughter gets married and changes her last name from Pifel, something like that, File, there you go. Does a paperwork need to be updated to reflect new name on the trust and or wills and things of that nature? Do you know? I don't know the answer to that, actually.
I don't know offhand, but I believe that depending on the language, they would say, I don't know. I don't want to speculate.
I would not think so, huh? But I just think because she has a marriage certificate that says she changed her name, I can't imagine that'd be an issue. Yeah. Dennis, he created a will years ago. We created a living trust a year ago. We no longer want some of the people in the will to be included. Is the will still in effect with the living trust? All right, so you have an older will. It's what's called a codicil, Amar. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
All right, so you want to talk about that?
No.
A codicil is you're updating your will, Hans, Dennis. So an amendment is a trust. You're updating your trust. A codicil is you're updating your will. It's just that simple. The problem with wills is always interesting is because what is the last update? This is why always kind of crap me up. So you have these deathbed wills and stuff like that. And the only way people know that it's out there is if someone brings it to the probate court. This has always been an amazing thing to me is you have the last will, all previous wills are null and void. So I take that to the financial institution, the probate court. I say, look, I'm the executor. All previous wills are null and void. Look, here you go. The financial institution doesn't know there's been another one to that. You see what I'm saying? It's always one of those interesting things on wills that has always kind of cracked me up. It's like they don't know. They're just going off what they see in front of them, which is one of the benefits of probate court, by the way, is that there is some managing of the assets, which essentially can say we want to make sure this flows as legal as possible. That's for sure.
So taking that point one step further, right? So some people, everybody's family is different and they're different family dynamics, and I get that, but it may be important maybe around Christmas or holidays or Thanksgiving, whatever, that you have a family meeting about your finances to communicate to those people that are in these roles as trustee, as even as a beneficiary, that what your wishes are, right? The more communication, from my experience, the more communication there is within a family, the more harmony there is after a life event.
100%. Could not agree with that more. Humor says, if I become the conservator of a special needs family member, do I need to include something in my will about my special needs family member? I can't hurt. Certainly you want to say if you die, what happens to that special needs, but anything you want
if you have assets that are flowing to the person that's a special needs a member in your family, then definitely yes. If your assets are not flowing through, then you're probably going to want to make sure that that original document has a successor behind you if something happens to you.
Hey, you want to say bye to the camera, Coco? There's Chloe. We'll give you a kiss right here for all to see. Oh, I love your girlfriend. Vinyl again comes up with some good stuff. once you get the certificate as executor from the probate court, you can pretty much do anything. I 100% agree with that. I remember waiting I used to be a banker many, many moons ago, and it would have, grandma just died, and you're like, I just need the letter, the letter of, I forgot, it was a letter of, not a letter of instruction. I forgot what it was, but the certificate saying that you were the executor. Mm-hmm. And then you're like, okay, it could have been a pain. It can be a pain, but also once you get that, you can make the probate work pretty smoothly. If a lot of times it works smoothly if you have your stuff in order, for sure.
So that reminds me of one case that the executor still has to act in the beneficiary's best interest, right? Like
yes.
Right. So like there was this one time I remember where an executor was taking money out of the account to pay for stuff that they were doing.
Yeah.
That wasn't related to the benefit, and then the beneficiaries had to sue, and it was like a big old legal nasty mess. But it does happen from time to time. So a good executor, good trustees, they have to be, and I would say this is just a rule of thumb that I use, is that you want somebody that's 10 to 15 years younger than you. You want somebody that has the time to actually do the work that needs to be done. You want somebody that has the knowledge, right? And then the last thing I would say is the ability, meaning like the ability to act on your behalf for some of these things.
I could not agree more. In fact, there's plenty of case law about families not having harmony and not knowing who's going to be in charge, and or just a cluster. And don't do that, man. Don't do that to your kids. You got to get it. The harmony of an estate plan is wonderful, and if you don't set it up, you can really create this grift. I don't know, whatever.
Rift.
Say again? Rift. Yeah.
Rift.
I'm a grifter. You can really create that can't be overcome. Sad, man. Families break apart all the time over stupid stuff. It's nuts. And right here, my man, he says, I'm going to be financially supporting a special needs family member. Yeah. So you want to make sure that in your document that special needs family member probably doesn't assume assets at your death queue, because that could violate everything from his ability to get qualified for other care and things of that nature, for sure.
Yeah. Especially if you're on SSDI and getting prescriptions or anything else from that you don't want to jeopardize that. But all
right, so Jeremy is here. We can start now. Whew, thank goodness, because it's only an hour and 18 minutes late. So let's get started, everybody. Just real quick, on top of I cannot stress enough about the beneficiary designations. There's so much case law about dad left it to his previous wife who cheated on him and blah, 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 and forgot to change the beneficiary to his kids and the previous wife, blah, blah, blah. And the judge says, look, he said he wants his ex-wife to get the money. It's right here in writing. I can't just go in there and gradually change it because the kids are like, well, he says he wants his ex-wife to get it. That's all there is to it. Yeah, but Judge, he wrote it when they were married in 1980. He goes, well, it's up to him to change it. I did a couple of videos on that probably 2 or 3 years ago. I probably ought to do them again. If you don't have your beneficiary designations up to date, you're wrong. And by the way, you can name multiple beneficiaries. I got 4 kids. So it goes Charlotte, 100% of beneficiary, my $30. And then it goes when she dies, assume she dies after me, after me, which is certainly the case. It goes, for 25% each. So if I got $30, they'll each get, how much is that? $7.50. So they each get $7.50 of my estate. There you go. Q Setter Seal rewatch this. Yeah. So by all means, guys, this is going on Amar's channel and my channels in the plural. You're never going to learn this just from watching us, but hopefully it'll give you a kick in the pants to say, I need some help, or I got my stuff squared away. One of the things that Amar can do, which I don't, and is that you can be a corporate trustee, right, Amar? Or what's the
Yeah, I mean, through Fidelity and Schwab, we can serve as a corporate trustee, and we serve as trustees for individual estates and trusts. But we're going to talk about that next week. Okay. So next week, the 3 big topics is going to be irrevocable trusts, right? And how that impacts family dynamics and everything else there. Assets that are not titled in your trust, like we had a question about 401k, and you want to put restrictions on the flow of those assets. How do you do that? And then what if you don't have anybody in your family or anybody that you can trust to deal with your estate? How does a corporate trustee fit in?
Cute says, Josh, who will inherit my YouTube money? I don't know. I've always wondered that. There's a guy on YouTube, a cooking guy. I almost want to say his name's Big Red from Louisiana, and he died. And there's these two ladies who took over. I think one was his ex, or not his ex, his wife. And I don't know how that works. I always wonder, like, if you die, what does YouTube even know you're dead? I'm not sure how that works. So, can you name organizations as beneficiary? Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, a nonprofit.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. All right, so any other questions? We got a few more minutes before Amar needs to jump off. Any other financial planning, anything that jumps out at you? Again, good books, Understanding Living Trust. I'll put all of these links in the show notes. And if you buy it through my Amazon link, I get that sweet, sweet Amazon commission of, I think it might even be now 2%. So for every $10 you spend, what? Grumpy skin, I get 20 cents. Isn't that crazy? So any thoughts, questions, comments that you all want to add here? Well, my dogs we were just outside, are griping here. And don't forget to subscribe to Amar's channel. Amar, you hear that?
I'm almost at 300 something subscribers, so I appreciate.
How do you handle pets? I handle them by spanking their butts when they get all crazy like this guy. I don't know. Anything you want to add on?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen income trusts where you have somebody that's designated to take care of your pet, and then the trust pays a amount of income to that person to take care of their pets.
Amar, you got 313 subscribers, says.
Yeah, 313. Thank you.
Yeah, right on. Vinyl, I completely agree. I think keep it simple, 100%. Actually, just real quick, we'll talk about this next time too. It's okay to give money before you're dead, by the way, before you're dying. And don't forget, the more you give, the less that'll be in your estate. Not only is the money out of your estate, but the growth of that money is out of your estate as well. And I'm telling you, Amar, I know for a fact, a lot of people watching this say, I don't have to worry about estate tax because my estate isn't high enough. I mean, we're going to talk about this next week, but no, I mean, you don't know where that ball is going to bounce. I'm telling you, man. And so because of that, you need to do financial planning that includes discussing your estate plan for sure.
Yeah. I think there's 4 things, right? Everybody has to remember.
Amar for governor? What? Amar for governor?
Yeah, what? Newsom's going to get recalled? He's like...
When is that? When's that vote?
I don't know. I just got a coupon for 15% off at the French Laundry if I don't vote. That was a joke. All right. Anyways, so I was gonna say there's four.
Did you just make that up?
Yeah.
Oh, that's actually pretty good, man.
So
a coupon for 15% off at the French Laundry if I don't vote. Yeah. Oh my! Hey, keep going, Amar. Keep going.
All right. So there's 4 things. When you have assets, there's 4 things that you can do to minimize your estate. Number 1 is spend money, right? You worked hard, you earned this money, you should spend it on yourself or your family, friends, whatever. But spending money will reduce your estate, right? Then you can give it away, right? You can give it to your children, friends, charities, nonprofits is another one. And the 4th thing is do nothing and just pay taxes and be done with it, right? And so what we want to do is between those 4 is identify what's most important to you, and then create a plan that we're maximizing 3 and minimizing that 1 that for most people is taxes. So I appreciate it, Josh.
We're done. Thanks, Amar, for being here. We'll see you all next week, 12:30 Eastern Time, 9:30 California time. Right on.
Pacific Standard Time.
Right on. Thanks again for being here. Don't forget to subscribe to Amar's channel. And if you have questions, comments, or concerns, put it in not the show notes, but put notes in the comments when you see it. Yeah. that helps with the algorithm, but also says, hey, talk about this next time, guys, or something like that. It'd be pretty interesting to hear what's on your mind. Thanks, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.
All right, bye.
See you.